Hey guys, I'm Farmer Eli here at Historic Brattonville, and what we want to talk about is cotton and the impacts it made upon the enslaved people here at Historic Brattonville. Right to start with, we're going to talk about cotton. What is cotton? How does it grow? So we'll talk about the actual plant itself. Then we're going to talk about the impacts that the invention of the cotton gin had on the production of cotton. Finally, we'll talk about the daily impact of cotton production on the enslaved. Let's talk about cotton itself. Of course, cotton is a plant. We plant a seed and it grows. The cotton itself would be the fruit of that plant, much like an apple or an orange. Now, short staple cotton grew really well in this area. The only problem is the seeds. Now, not only did we have to grow the cotton, pick the cotton, but you also had to take the seeds out of the cotton to be in order to sell it. So that became a very, very big problem here. The reason why is because it took so long to pull these seeds out of the cotton. We know for a fact that it took the average enslaved person could do about a pound of cotton a day. The growing season of cotton worked hand in hand with corn. Now we know corn was your primary diet here in the mid 19th century. So the reason why cotton was really good was because the enslaved people would go, they would plant the corn, then it'd be time to plant the cotton. Now while the cotton was growing, it turned to be the time to harvest the corn. Finally, after the corn was harvested, then it was time to pick the cotton. So let's talk about the cotton gin and the impacts it made upon the production of cotton. Now, like we said earlier, this is short staple cotton, so the seeds themselves are wrapped tightly around that fiber. So it's a very tedious process. We know through documentation that it took an average enslaved person could work all day and pull about a pound of cotton off the seed. So that took a long time. If you think about cotton bales being 400 pounds, you're pulling off 1 pound of cotton off the seed a day. It took a long time. They say on average about 600 labor hours to produce 1 bale of cotton. Well, because it took such a long time to pull that cotton off the seed, what we know is there wasn't much cotton production as far as planting goes because it was bottlenecked here at the barns. Along come Eli Whitney. Eli Whitney, he was from up north. He went to Yale University and he moved down south. He originally wanted to become a tutor, and as he took a boat trip in South Carolina, he bumped into Catherine Greene. Her husband was Nathaniel Greene. Nathaniel Greene was the commanding officer of the Southern Continental Army. And after the war, they acquired land right outside of Savannah, Georgia, and Mulberry, Georgia. Once they did that, Nathaniel Greene wound up dying at an early age, and so Catherine Greene ran a plantation. After Eli Whitney met her on the boat, he came and visited the plantation, and what he realized was the needs of something to increase the production and make it faster to pull this cotton seed out of that cotton. So he turns around and invents the cotton gin. Some historians have suggested that Catherine Greene was the one that invented the cotton gin, but at that time, women could not apply for U.S. patents. And so therefore we see the patent of Eli Whitney's cotton gin in 1793. With the invention of the cotton gin, now he's able to do the same work with one man and a horse as 50 individuals can do. So you see the rapid increase of the processing of cotton here on the farm. So guys, let's talk about a gin. Now this gin we have here at Historic Brattonville, this dates to 1920s. It was donated from Clemson University, but the mechanism and how it works was pretty much identical to the original one that Eli Whitney used. It works almost like a strainer system. What we'll see as we look in here is you'll see a series of wheels. Now these wheels, they have teeth. Now Eli Whitney's had a hook system, but with these teeth right here, all the teeth are pointing in the same direction. And what that does is that grabs that cotton, as you see there. Now as that wheel rotates upwards, these things have a small slit here. So it's small enough for the cotton to go through that slit, but not large enough for the cotton seed itself to go through. So as that cotton enters the machine, we see the cotton seed drop down in the bottom. Now once it gets in that machine, there's a series of brushes, and those brushes will pull that cotton lint off of these wheels and in turn put it in our back hopper. So after it goes through those brushes, it falls in this back hopper. And what we have here is ginned cotton. Now this stuff is super fluffy. You know, we talk about cotton candy. That's how it got its name here. Now this cotton is really, really light. And so the next step after it's ginned, then they would put it in a press. And the press would have probably been used with a horse carousel system. It was a pit in the ground. It used a screw press. And it would compact this all the way down until we got to somewhere between 400 and 500 pound bales. Now once we have this 400 or 500 pound bales, at that point, it would have either gone up north because we've already hit the Industrial Revolution, so those manufacturing facilities up north was using a lot of cotton, or it would go across the ocean to England. Now let's talk about the daily impacts of cotton production on the lives of the enslaved. It was a very hard life. You know, they worked from the can to the can't, meaning they worked from the time you can see to the time you can't see. To get an understanding how long the days were, how hard it was for them, you know, they were eating breakfast before sunlight. Then they would come out in the fields, work all day. They would have maybe 30 minutes in the middle of the day. They could either bring their ash cakes with them or create a little fire by the fields. And then they had to work all the way up until the sun set. And then that's when they have dinner. So you think about the summer months, how long that day is. You're talking about eating breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning and maybe eating dinner at 8, 9 o'clock at night. Now, planters prioritize the profits of cotton over the lives of the enslaved.